Yeah, this was June 24th. Yeah, we are swimming in.
Most recent was 12/10. 12/10? Anybody see that?
I don't have that one.
All right. Okay. You got a secret. That's good. That's a good start.
Yeah, but where's the date?
Page 13.
Page 15?
13.
Well, the one that you have, the latest figure. we have-
6/24/21.
Yeah, that's the June one. But that's not far off. There's not much. And as we go through it, we can update that. So you got a copy to look at. Have you have
I
any?
got the June.
Okay. So we got enough copies here so we know. I've got the 12/18 here. This is the last one you did.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the last one right
Yep.
there.
Which one's that, Frank? 12/18?
12/18 is the last one.
You need copies?
It would be probably, I'd hate to hold everything up here. Well, we're good. We're all right. I think we're all right. If it causes a problem, we'll stop.
If you change your mind, let me know.
Sure enough. Okay.
Katie's quicker than I am, so if you want
Okay.
that.
So, I think we've got that, John. So we're ready.
Okay, so we're here tonight to advance this project. As you guys know, the next step after it gets through you folks is there's a scheduled public hearing on the proposed local law. The only thing that local law does is create a zone called it's called the PDD, Plan Development District, which would be tailored towards this project. It would be this project and this project only. That's what that PDD would be. But in order to get there, this planning board was given the responsibility to do the seeker review, the environmental impact review of the project. The applicants provided a whole bunch of information for us, and Frank and I have been looking through it, and we have different things. We've had traffic studies and letters from different bodies and entities, and probably the easiest way to get into this thing, we have options. Does everybody remember the project, and you've looked at the plans and everything like that? Is anybody not familiar with this project, generally speaking? We know what it is, right? Okay. And one of the ways I usually go at this is I'll go through this part 2 of the EAF, which is 18 questions. How many questions is it? I think it's 18 different deep dive questions on what the potential impact this project could have on the environment. And as the instructions say, what you're looking to find out is if a particular area of the environment will be negatively impacted. But most importantly, whether the impact could be a moderate to large impact versus a no impact to small impact. If you get into a moderate to large impact, you're going to end up potentially heading towards an additional whole set of procedures that'll push this thing months and months and months down the road. And we can all talk about that, but I think the applicant's position is going to be that they've incorporated mitigations or will incorporate mitigations into their project so that it won't have a significant negative impact to the environment. But that's what our job is, to evaluate what that impact could be at the time it's been built. So that's what we're trying to figure out.
John, can I just interrupt?
Yeah.
We have part 1. We do not have a part 2. We don't. Don't we have some generic part 2s printed up? That's all we need. They don't need to, because he doesn't fill it. He doesn't do anything with part 2. We do that.
Yep.
All we need is a generic part 2.
Oh, by the way, you were going to email me some of that stuff about the Dollar General after the last meeting. You may have sent it, but I never received it.
No, I'm trying to remember what I was supposed to email you though.
It was something about different types of plans and such they had for the Dollar General stores.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I had done a search to show the facades on a
Right.
Dollar General.
Right.
And I was going, I did email you the link.
Yeah,
for
I
that,
never
right?
got it.
It did come through to you?
No.
Really?
JASP30, or J6PA@gmail.com.
hold on. Well, I don't have it now, so I gotta redo
No,
it.
I'm
If
just-
you just key in Dollar General.
I wrote I
You're
Googled
gonna get it. I
Dollar
Googled it.
General facades.
You Google
And I
Google
got
it, it'll come
18
up.
pages of different Dollar General facades, and I hit like forward to you, Paul, but it must not have gone through.
You can get the Key West Dollar General with a palm tree.
That's what you can, you really can. There's like the Western version of that.
Yeah,
You get everything.
you get the chip and angle version with the 3 blank sides.
Yeah, so,
But there's quite a bit of info there.
Okay. All
yeah,
right.
I'm sorry, Paul, I did send it, it must not have gone
No, I
through.
just, I wanted to
Sorry,
remember
Phil.
to ask you about that. so-
Yeah, no, I'm glad you mentioned it, okay.
All right.
So again, the objective here is we're gonna talk about these 18 areas, and we're gonna sort of tie it back into this project, you know, and we'll talk about traffic, and we'll talk about drainage, and we'll talk about a lot of different aspects, and then they've got, you know, a number of moving parts here in their project. And we're doing it, examine it and see, okay, well, what kind of impact could that have on the water table, or on traffic, or what have you? And then luckily Ed is gonna be here to sort of expand. If we have specific questions, we can ask him. What I suspect is, he's gonna say in his design, he's anticipated certain things, and here's how the project will handle those. And then it's up to you to evaluate that you're satisfied with it or otherwise. And then we'll go through that. We'll get through the whole part 2 of the questions, and we'll answer those. And then with any luck, we're gonna talk about this resolution, the draft resolution I had done, and I tailored that draft resolution to track those 18 areas of environmental consequences that we have to examine. And it's very specific to the project. So we'll go through those, and I'm certain you guys might have thoughts, and I'd like to capture those thoughts in that environmental review. And then if we're lucky enough, if you guys are comfortable, you'll get to your recommendation tonight to the town board on the project. So, you know, just like you've done on the other PDDs, you've made recommendations. And your recommendations can include many different things. You can say, hey, we really want the town board to consider the following things. If you decide to approve this, think about maybe considering this or this or this in it. And then the other thing, and then I know Ed knows this because he and I have talked about it, the way your law works, I don't have the section in front of me, but it says if they get the zone change in place, now they got a zone change, now that land is zoned to do this project. Before they can physically build it, they have to swing back to you guys with their final set of plans and say, okay, this is exactly what we're gonna go out there and start building. And again, the building permits will issue when everything's plugged in the right way. They come back, and your job is to make sure that what the final version of this is comports with what the town board said, yes, this is what this PDD will be. And that's the way your law reads, and that's kind of how I see this going forward.
So if we go through this, they all dovetail together. So if you've got a question about something that you've looked at, we can, the proper place where it kind of fits, we can discuss that. And then we can further discuss how you want to convey that to the town board in the recommendation. And that's basically all we're doing. We really aren't taking a yea or nay on it. We're evaluating what has been here. There's going to be things that we feel that are adequately answered, and there's things that we still have questions about, and that's what we have to kind of see if we can point out, okay? Or see if we can get a handle. But that's our goal anyway. Okay.
I have no thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So today I'm gonna date mine. 1/12/22.
Part 2. Taylor Street.
Right, do you have a copy of the resolution?
Sure, I got next one. I think.
Let's see, we got Frank's name on here, I'm gonna sign as the preparer.
Here it is, no, that's the older one, that's it.
That's it.
Yeah, okay.
That's a new one?
Yep.
Yep.
Well,
We're good.
Thank you, Phil.
We're good.
Wait.
These are extras.
Everybody ready to,
I think we're good. Fine.
get cooking on this?
Sure.
Okay, let's just dig right into the questions. And sometimes when you go to answer some of these questions, they put a nice little handy set of sub-questions that can give you an idea what they're looking for, okay? All right, so the first question asks, will there be an impact on land? The proposed action may involve construction on or physical alteration of the land surface of the proposed site. Of course, the answer is yes, they're gonna be constructing, so I'll check the box for yes. But in order to evaluate, you know, what the level of that impact would be, let's just kind of run down through some of these sub-questions and see where it brings us. A, the proposed action may involve construction on land where depth to water table is less than 3 feet. And I think your part one, Ed, addresses that. So you want to give us an idea where we're at with the water table?
Yep, so the way that we evaluated the water table location, we discussed this last meeting, was in order for us to do this in the EAF, we used the NRCS web soil survey. So that's where that information comes from. And there are certain soils listed. There are a bunch of different soils listed throughout this site when you look at the soils map. And we're just going based on what they say in that soil survey. And the question is there in any of those subsets of soil, are there any areas or those soils that have a water table that has a seasonal high perch? You know, where is that seasonal high perch? And there are soils that are listed and then have a shallow seasonal groundwater perch.
The answer is yes.
So the answer is yes.
The answer is yes.
Okay, okay, so we've identified that. Let's just look through some of the other questions before we consider whether there's a large impact that's not otherwise being met. But we got to decide if there's a concern for that. So let's look at some of the other questions before we go on to that. Does the proposed action involve construction on slopes steeper than 15%? No. Okay. The proposed action may involve construction on where bedrock is exposed?
No.
The proposed action may involve an excavation removal.
Excuse me just a minute. On your seeker in your data, you've got bedrock at 6 feet.
Greater than 6 feet. So same thing. NRCS limits it.
I'm gonna say you don't have any bedrock at 6 feet.
We don't, but they limit their analysis.
The soil's listed at like 50, 60 feet.
Yeah.
Around here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, under sub question D, the proposed action may involve excavation or removal of more than 1,000 tons of natural material. No, I don't think so, right?
Well, we're not remove all of the earthwork balances on the site. So
yeah, so you're not removing that away from the site.
What was the answer to that?
No.
I think the answer is no for this.
Well, it's not going off site.
Correct.
But you are excavating a lot.
Yeah, but I don't have the earthwork tally with me as far as what that.
Well, let me ask you that: is there a concern that
1,000 tons is not about 750 yards.
It's pretty easy to hit.
Right.
Yeah, it's not.
But I don't know if we're concerned that's a large impact.
No, I don't think it's an impact. I'm just curious. What are you going to do? You're got a lot. You're going to end up with not only your swales, but you're going to be scraping that whole parking lot in order to basically, even if you just do half to put in your gravel beds, you're gonna be moving a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Where's it going?
Right on site. We're using it for earthwork throughout the site.
and stuff.
Yeah.
Earthwork?
Well,
Okay,
general
all right,
earthwork.
okay.
We're gonna.
So they're going to reincorporate that material into the project. It sounds like. The proposed action may involve construction that continues for more than a year in multiple phases. Now, I think we said did we think there was going to be multiple phases or not?
So we're not looking at this. We're looking at this from a phasing standpoint as a single phase.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in any event, does anybody see that as a concern to the environment? Is that a risk to the environment?
No.
Because I would suggest this that whatever he's doing, he's got a SWIP. So anything that's happening out there's got to be appropriate erosion control measures, buckled down in place, and they have to follow that. So we'll call that a small impact. After proposed action resulted in increased erosion, whether from physical disturbance or vegetation removal, and again, I think that would fall under any potential erosion would be covered under the SWIP, right? And it's a fairly flat project, right? And you're not in a coastal hazard area, so we'll say no to that. So going back to the depth of water table, less than 3 feet. So that's kind of various, Ed, throughout the project. And then in terms of what concerns should we be aware of as far as the project goes with that water table? Is anything to be of concern with that at that level, or is it a small impact? What are we trying to say?
I mean, again, I would say that it's a small impact. We're controlling all the on-site stormwater, all the on-site water is controlled.
So the answer is because of
Well,
stormwater measures.
To some extent, I mean, again, not to push it too far, but the idea is you wouldn't have all the wet swales and everything else if you didn't have to deal with higher groundwater. You gotta get somewhere that's a sink for any kind of water that you are moving off the surface.
Right.
And so that becomes a challenge to do that because of the condition of those soils.
Right, and that's why we
Right.
designed those mitigation
So,
plans.
I mean, you've mitigated that fact with the size of the swales and your engineering
The design.
by design to do that.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention, and maybe you had said it and I wasn't paying attention, Ed and BNL have been going back and forth with the comments on the SWIP, and maybe this is a good time for just giving a quick update on the status of that back and forth with BNL.
Yeah, so pretty straightforward standard stuff. We got all their comments. We went through our plans one by one with their comments. We addressed their comments. We've done all of the SWIP comments have been addressed. All of the plan comments that we're able to address, we've addressed. And then at the end of last week, we did have a follow-up call with Taylor and Ashland in his office to go over those comments and just explain to them, you know, where we were at, and just make sure there wasn't anything glaring. But with respect to this stuff with the SWIP, we addressed.
So there will be a forthcoming letter, hopefully, to say that these things have been satisfied.
From BNL?
Right.
Yeah, right. Yep, so what I gave you tonight, Frank, was our response to their SWIP comments and plan review comments.
So we haven't adjusted that yet. All right.
Next thing,
I don't think it's a big deal.
the next area of environmental concern is impact on geological features. The proposed action may result in the modification or destruction of or inhibit access to any unique or unusual landform, e.g. cliffs, dunes, minerals, fossils, caves. I'm gonna suggest no on that one.
Yep.
You know that project, right? Impacts on surface water. The proposed action may affect one or more wetlands or other surface water bodies, streams, river, ponds, or lakes. So we gotta pause here because we know that this is a big site and there may be different types of wetlands on the site, but I believe the applicant, and he can speak more to it, I believe that there's no proposal to disturb any wetlands and to stay in compliance with both federal wetland regulations and state DEC wetland regulations, if that's correct.
Yes.
And one of the things that Frank and I have talked about is just making sure, and I know you know this, but just articulating that any applicant is always under advisement from the planning board that any approval or anything of that nature that this board does, every applicant and their contractors are on notice to stay outside of the wetlands, don't disturb them, comply with federal and state regulation. Any sign off by this board is not an okay to go ahead and violate any wetland regulations. I know it sounds silly that I say it out loud, but I think we just need to say it because there are wetlands in here. You just can put a better, finer point on the discussion on wetlands for this project.
Yep, so there are, as John pointed out, you have wetlands that are under either state or federal jurisdiction. And the rules for, with state wetlands, they have a 100-foot buffer that you need to stay out of. Federal wetlands, you can build right up to them. There are, in the southerly portion of the site, there are wetlands down in the bottom and in the back that are under state jurisdiction. So when we were designing this, we stayed not only out of those wetland boundaries, but that 100-foot buffer as well. Because even when you're working in the buffer in the state wetland, you still need approval from DEC to do so. So we've stayed entirely out of that. In the northern portion of the southerly part of the site, so still on the south side of New Boston Road, right on the north edge, the resource mappers do point out federal wetlands. Our wetland biologist went out there and determined that those were non-jurisdictional under the federal rules, because they could not get a nexus for them, and they were using the term as a prior converted cropland in those areas. So therefore, those wetlands up there
I think to further, I think we're in agreement, that just to further our disclaimer, or at least a fair notice, that if somebody, if there's repercussions, because we only accepted the internal assessment of that the town bears no culpability as far as.
Which is true, and again, with the
Okay.
wetlands, that's a self-policing exercise.
That's right.
Right,
Okay.
That's a better way to put it.
Yeah.
So
just to make
we
ourselves.
we will state that.
And I
Even though we
did
stated
provide
that.
an email forwarded from our staff wetland biologist.
Well, that email, she left herself an escape route and said anticipated that, that.
Yeah.
That's what it would be. If the board accepts that, then basically, it's on your court, and if somebody comes knocking, we don't know nothing. Right?
Exactly. Yep.
Basically.
Well, and let's just go through some of the sub-questions, because that helps us really drill down on it. So I quickly looked at them. So let's look through these like we did on the other questions. So the first sub-question on number 3 is, the proposed action may create a new water body. So it depends how you're looking at a water body. We're gonna have some ponds that we're gonna make, right? Does anybody feel that the ponds that we make are gonna have some major detriment to the environment? So we can say that's a small impact potentially if it's done the right way, which is also gonna be covered under.
But standard, that's their standard operating.
Yeah, we have those on other projects. The proposed action may result in an increase or decrease of 10% or more may result in an increase or decrease of over 10% or more than a 10-acre increase or decrease in the surface area of any body of water. That's probably a no.
Correct.
The proposed action may involve dredging more than 100 cubic yards of material from a wetland. We already said no to that. Proposed action may involve construction within or joining a freshwater or tidal wetland or in the bed or banks of any other water body. We said no to that earlier. Proposed action may create turbidity in a water body either from upland erosion, runoff, or disturbing bottom sediments, and I don't think that's occurring here, Ed, am I correct?
Yes, correct.
The proposed action may include construction of one or more intakes for withdrawal of water from surface water. What does that mean, Ed, to you? You're not proposing that, are you? The proposed action may include construction of one or more outfalls for discharge of wastewater to surface water. Now, they are designing a package treatment plant that will have to receive approval from the New York State DEC and the Department of Health. And in theory, they'll have to get a permit for any discharge of the wastewater that's in that. I don't even know what's going in. Is it going to surface waters or to some of the basins?
So
Where's this going?
that discharge, again, it's gonna go, so that will discharge right to daylight. And
But not into
Where's
a water
daylight
body.
go? Where are we going with it?
well, the way there's an outfall on it right now, so it's gonna go down. You know where the bioretention area is down in that southerly portion, which ultimately that too then is connected to that bigger basin down in the south. That's where it's going.
Okay, so there's no, on the maps that we've seen, there's no connectivity to the plant to any of those.
Right.
So-
Because again, that package plant that's being designed by Delta, who's the manufacturer of the deal, they've got to, they would give the specs for.
Right, I mean, but the effluent's coming on no matter who does it, or no matter what's in that structure, there's gonna be effluent, it's going somewhere.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to get a handle on.
And
Where's
yep.
it going?
And again, so to that end, what John's pointing out with that DEC permit, that discharge, that Speedy's permit for wastewater discharge is, the levels of discharge that come out of there are going to have to be below those acceptable levels to surface discharge that wastewater, that filter.
The DEC and
Right,
that permit.
gonna have to meet
determine
those
it's
standards,
safe.
but we're just wondering, physically, where is it going? You're not running it over the back bank, you're running it into a structure.
Mhm.
And so you're gonna go through both the wet pond, hook into the wet pond, and then
Pipe it through. Yeah.
Or the dry pond, or the bioretention one, and then the wet pond?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be nice to see that on a set of plans.
And in that regard, because we know that a speedies permit will have to be issued, and we know that to get a speedies permit, the DEC has to evaluate, you know, what that impact could be. I think it would be safe to say that it'd be a small impact, or at least a impact that's being mitigated through oversight by the DEC. So I'll check, for now, I'll check the small impact for that one.
I agree. Now, just as a point of information, have you had your pre-application meeting with DEC for this? Have you sat down with DEC with whatever basic plans you have?
No, with the Department of Health, county, so.
Yeah, but with DEC?
No.
You haven't had that
No.
meeting yet?
No, we've communicated with them through email. They've seen the plans. We have a contact over there who we've filtered.
Okay, but
Our
you have no
documents.
formal, you've had no formal meeting with
No.
DEC?
So what I think what they're getting at here is, the board's getting at is that they want some comfort that the DEC, I think you've said this before, the DEC has experience with these package treatment plants, and that this is a feasible design that you're gonna propose to them, that DEC will be able to issue the appropriate permitting for that particular plant that's gonna be
Yeah,
created.
so that company that we're working for, we're doing it for a reason. We're working with that Delta company because their package plants have already been, they're one of the pre-approved vendors for this package plant through DEC. So we're doing this so that we're not reinventing the wheel. They pull it out of the catalog and say, we've seen that package plant.
Which Delta you know, because I know there's a Delta out in the Albany area.
That's
you know?
it.
Okay, so this is Delta, this is the one that did the treatment plant, Frank, at the, where is it? I'm telling you, it's over in Hamilton.
Oh,
At
that
the-
mall?
Yeah, the mall, the strip mall, it's got the Price Chopper and the Tractor Supply. You guys know that one?
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, Delta, I believe, did that one, and that's what they run off of. So
Because you're gonna have, you got some interesting dynamics here. You're gonna have a great variable flow. Seasonal, depending on what's open and what's not open. You know, you're gonna run quite a range into that plant.
Mhm.
And I imagine all of that's gotta be factored in. It's not like you're going to the strip mall, and the strip mall has got a much more predictable flow on an annual basis
So
than this does.
So that's a good question. So they have different design options out there. They have different pods. So in other words, like in a residential subdivision, just to get off topic for a second, you put the main tank in the ground, and then you install pods, individual pods as phases are constructed, because there needs to be a certain amount of inflow to make these things function.
Yeah, those little bacteria need food.
Exactly. So you can't just build a huge plant and then let things trickle in, so they do them in the pods. So that's option A. Option B is they control it differently with different cells and things like that. So when the thing's in full operation, and they're in full swing, they've got everything open, they've got all the valves open, all the controls are running, and then when the campground shuts down and we're dealing with just the banquet facility, for example, and the restaurant, and we've reduced those flows to those two buildings, then you shut all the valves down in the control specific to everything else and just reduce it so that it's just operating out of whatever that individual cell.
And they'll be required to engage and hire and retain a certified operator that holds the proper permits to make sure that treatment plant does what it's supposed to do.
Yes,
That's correct.
and again, that goes through the O&M requirements of even Delta. So when they come out and they install this thing in their O&M contract, there's requirements that certain things be met and adhered to, and then they'll come out, they check everything themselves. So you've got, and don't forget that reporting has to go back to both DOH and DEC on whatever schedule they require to, so.
So that's the theory there. Okay, the next.
Basically, as far as the board knows, I think you're probably more familiar with it. Basically, this is an off-site construction, and they basically are build the pad or whatever it is, and they bring up this whole unit, these unit or multiple units, however it's configured, all in, and these guys don't have anything really to do with that. And then, but still, I think it's good that we need to see on plans that we see the inflow, we don't see any kind of an outflow. I think it needs to be clear that that's going. Now, if you go to a retention pond, that, again, just kind of given what I see in that pond along the road, is there any plans for aeration?
No. The short answer is no, we didn't plan for, you mean like fountains and
Yeah.
that sort of, no, not. No.
Okay. Could that be a requirement down the road when DEC and DOH gets done with this?
No. I mean, anything could be, but no, they wouldn't, because we're gonna be discharging levels out of that thing that are under, or that are acceptable to hit the surface and run. So, what would they need? What would they
But
require
it's
to
a
aerate?
stagnant body of water. There's no flow other than flow in.
The wet ponds?
Yeah.
There's flow out. There's a low flow orifice that the static water sits at that low flow. And anytime the incoming water comes in, it trickles out of that low flow orifice.
Where's that's just going out of the sheet? Where's that go?
So that goes into the outlet structure, your box, and then it goes out through a pipe and discharges out to the surface.
Interesting. All right. Good.
All right, next question asks, the proposed action may cause soil erosion or otherwise create a source of stormwater discharge that may lead to siltation or other degradation of receiving water bodies. And Ed, in that regard to that question, do you have any comments about whether that's an issue for any reason?
No, on two fronts, we're gonna be, again, we've got, in the SWIP, we've got the erosion control measures that are gonna be in place and sized
Right.
to accommodate that. And then secondarily, the way that the stormwater ponds are designed, we can't discharge any more, volumetrically, we can't discharge any more than what's coming to it. So we have to reduce those peak flows through these mitigation efforts anyway, so.
All right, the next question says, the proposed action may affect the water quality of any water body within or downstream of the site of the proposed action. And I don't know, I'm not an engineer, but I'm guessing the answer, you would say the answer to that's no because of the entire lay of the land here.
Well, that, and again, in the stormwater, New York State requires water quality measures to be implemented with your stormwater plans. So we have water quality components in the stormwater design.
So that water is essentially gonna be dissipated on the land itself, it doesn't run off the Canasarega or Chittenango creeks?
No, so it all discharges on site.
Right, okay,
Yeah, but what I'm saying is the flows that are currently going to these various discharge points as they currently leave the site,
Mhm.
when we get done with this project, they'll be less, at or less than what's existing out there right now.
The next question asks, the proposed action may involve the application of pesticides or herbicides in or around any water body. So they're not proposing to use pesticides or herbicides. All right. Next question asks, the proposed action may require the construction of new or expansion of existing wastewater treatment facility. The answer to that is yes, that's exactly what they're doing. And I think their position is that with a properly designed packaged treatment plant, that impact would be small and would be controlled through the proper design and permitting of that exact packaged treatment plant. Is everybody comfortable with that? And then other impacts. Anybody have any other impacts on that question, or do you want to go on to groundwater? All right. Question 4, impact on groundwater. The proposed action may result in new or additional use of groundwater or may have the potential to introduce contaminants to groundwater or an aquifer. So if you kind of just scan down, might want to just scan down the sub-questions and see if any of these trigger us feeling that we want to check a yes and then go deep. Let's see. We're not going to have new well water. We're not gonna exceed the demand for any safe or sustainable withdrawal of water because we're gonna get the water from aqua. All right, it won't result in any harmful residential use impacts for water.
Now you got I would imagine the bus garage is on water.
Yeah,
I would imagine all the people on Lakeport Road are on public water, so you're not looking at private wells.
okay, water well supplies, a lot of these are well questions, the petroleum and chemical products really don't matter, I don't think there's gonna be any bulk storage of petroleum there. Commercial, I believe, I already said nothing on, so, you comfortable if we just say no to this question then, or do the sub-question? Impact on flooding. Proposed action may result in development on land subject to flooding. What's their status as in terms of flooding the lands themselves? Are they, if you looked at sub-questions, is this development in a designated floodway? No, right? Under your-
P&L indicates a 500-year flood.
Okay, so we got that development, so even though it's in the 500-year floodplain, do we feel like there's gonna be a significant negative impact from this project in that floodplain,
Yeah.
Change floodwaters, the dam look and no dam, so are you okay with a no on this one?
Yes.
Okay, oh yeah, I forgot to put the SWIFT calls, yeah, there we go. Impacts on the air. Proposed action may include a state-regulated air emission source that does not, as far as I know, I'm not an engineer, but I think Ed would tell you there's nothing like that going on here, right? Correct. They don't have any factories or anything. Impact on plants and animals. Proposed action may result in a loss of flora or fauna. Look at the sub-questions to see if we're concerned here. Reduction in the population or loss of an individual or threatened animal species or endangered species. I don't think there was.
Adding to.
Northern Harrier.
So,
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah. Have you seen any out there?
How about snowy owls?
They're not listed. Northern Harrier is.
Okay, so we're not concerned about that. We got, reduction in the population or loss of individual species of special concern.
The other thing you're getting is loss of habitat. But I'd still say that's minor.
Yeah, and there's still gonna be available habitat inside the park area as well as the adjoining properties. So, okay. Let's look at the next one. Next one is, impact on agricultural resources. The proposed action may impact agricultural resources. Let's take a look at now that is farmland, right? Correct, it's farmland. It was.
It's farmland.
Okay, and it has been farmland. So let's
But
work through this one
I would
on
put
the
it in the
sub-
prime, I would not put it in the prime category.
Okay, well, let's just work down through the sub-questions so we can say we feel that we're not gonna cause any problems here. So the first sub-question is, proposed action may impact soils classified within soil groups 1 through 4 of the New York State Land Classification System. If it is, is there gonna be a large impact or would it be small?
It would be small, because I don't think there's,
Yeah.
I'm not aware of what soils are in those.
I don't either. Okay,
But I'm just saying, it's not a highly productive.
Proposed action may sever, cross, or otherwise limit access to agricultural lands. We'll go no. Proposed action may result in excavation or compaction of soil profile of active agricultural land. Would that be small?
Small.
Because there's certainly acres if located in an ag district, or more than 10 acres if not located in an ag district.
That would be a yes.
Okay, so that's true. So the question now is, do we have a large impact that's overall for the towns concerned about agricultural lands, or a small manageable impact?
Small.
All right. E, the proposed action may disrupt or prevent installation of an agricultural land management system. I don't think there's one in place for that anyway, but would you be fair to say that would be a small impact,
Yeah.
if any?
If that,
F, the proposed action may result directly or indirectly in increased development potential or pressure on farmland. Is this not so big that it's putting pressure on the entire region, right? Next one is proposed project is not consistent with the adopted municipal farmland protection plan. I don't think we have one here, right? We don't have one.
that's nowhere.
Not for the town of Sullivan. All right, so we got through that. I did check yes on that, because there's certainly gonna be an impact, but all the impacts were small or no impact. Impact on aesthetic resources, this is number 9. The land use of the proposed action are obviously different from or in sharp contrast to the current land use patterns between the proposed project and a scenic or aesthetic resource. So we have to, is there a scenic or aesthetic resource that's been identified here?
No.
So this is, it's just a typical farm field area, so I'll go no to that one. You can certainly look through the sub-questions to see what they're trying to get at, Like in Casanova, like the Route 20 corridor, that's an area where you would say, look, there's a ton of scenic vistas that you gotta be concerned about if something pops up on that. So I would probably guess that that's what they're looking for here. On 10, impact on historic and archaeological resources. The proposed action may occur in or adjacent to a historic or archaeological resource. Take a look at some of those sub-questions. And I thought there's like is there one house in the area but it's not adjacent to
But
it?
we got a response.
Yeah, oh, that's right, thank you. Yeah, there's a full response from, so they did get a response back from SHPO on that, and they had no concerns. Right. SHPO response indicates, and I have that in the proposed resolution, by the way, indicates no concerns. Okay, so we'll check that. And I do have that letter, I don't know what I did with it. Has everybody seen that? You guys remember this letter? It's from a month or two ago.
It came real early.
Yeah, so, okay, so that, we covered that. All right, thank you. The next question is impact on open space and recreation. So this question, they're typically looking at impacts to open space resources that have been adopted through any municipal open space plan, and the town of Sullivan, I don't believe, has an open space plan that I'm aware of.
No.
I'd be okay with a no there. Again, the same thing for number 12. A critical environmental area is a particular area that's created under procedures outlined in the Environmental Conservation Law. Town of Sullivan doesn't have that. I have one client that has a critical environmental area that's improperly formed, and that's around the first 20 feet of Casanova Lake is a CEA now.
Really?
Yep. And all that means is you have to file a long EAF, just like we're going through now. If you do anything on that lake within those 20 feet, you automatically, even if it's a house, you have to do a long EAF to make sure that, that you're looking out for everything. That's what that's about. That was an interesting project too, to get that listed. 13, impact on transportation. The proposed action may result in a change to existing transportation systems. We can check yes for that, because we know that, because that's one of the concerns we had, and we asked the applicant to go out and get a traffic impact study for us from Gordon Stansbury. And you have the original report, and then you have the supplemental report. But let's look at the sub-questions. Projected traffic increase may exceed capacity of the existing road network. And I think Gordon said that was not going to happen. The proposed action result in construction of paved parking area for 500 more vehicles. Now we're doing, how many are we doing? 211, I think it was.
That's a park. That's
the park.
Well, that's a parking, excuse me, yeah.
No,
That's for the spots, yeah.
on the front. You can total them there on the front page.
Yeah, but we're under 500.
Yeah.
Proposed action will degrade existing transit access. Again, you could refer to the Gordon Stansbury reports. Proposed action will degrade existing pedestrian or bicycle accommodations. There currently aren't any pedestrian accommodations, and I think people probably use that road for bicycles, but no different than other traffic along the road. Proposed action may alter the present pattern of the movement of people or goods. So there's for that use.
I agree, and one thing that the traffic report does not address the activity that's now present on Lakeport Road. In other words, what this might do in concert with Lakeport Road. It wasn't asked for, it wasn't offered. But just, I think it's noteworthy to say that was not addressed. And that, obviously, there will be times when the activities of both are overwhelm Lakeport Road, they do now.
Okay, well, we can throw that into your recommendation for the board.
That was not,
Just,
that was
you know,
not,
take note of it.
that was
Okay.
not a problem.
All right, I've made a note for that. Okay, next question, impact on energy. Impact on energy. The proposed action may cause an increase in the use of any form of energy. Probably will, I suppose, technically. Let's look at the sub-questions. Proposed action require new or upgraded substation? No. Proposed action will require creation, extension of an energy transmission supply for 50 single homes? No. Proposed action may utilize more than 2,500 megawatts? Holy cow, no. You know what might is if those Bitcoin mines that they're building now, those things are cranking energy out. Holy cow. You designing any of those? Sounds like it might
When
be.
someone explains that thing to me
Yeah.
completely,
Yeah.
maybe I'll get into doing something.
I was shocked by the amount of
But
energy.
you could have gone
that's
green,
used.
you had room on one area there, you could put in a lot of solar panels
Yeah. That's possible, yeah, down the line.
on the north side there.
Yeah.
I'll convey the
That would have added one more layer to this.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
proposed action may involve heating or cooling of more than 100,000 square feet of buildings. No, they're not proposing.
Yeah.
So we've answered no or small impact to the sub-questions, even though there's a potential impact for energy, but it's all capable of being contained. Impact of noise, odor, and light. The proposed action may result in an increase in noise, odors, and outdoor lighting. Of course, if that's possible, so we'll say yes, but let's look at the sub-questions. Proposed action may produce sounds above noise levels established by local regulations. We don't have any local regulation, noise ordinance. We don't have that. Proposed action may result in blasting within 1,500 feet of any residence. I don't think they're proposing that. Proposed action may result in routine odors for more than one, may result in routine odors for more than 1 hour per day. I think the only odors you're talking about might be that small animal area display, but I think we're doing a waste management component, and maybe some idling vehicles, Frank, or something like that. But it's open air out there. I don't know that you're not in a contained area where you're going to choke off people, so it seems like that open area might be sufficient for that. All right.
When you move the sludge out of the treatment plant or something.
Yeah, that could be something.
They'll move it fast, less than an hour.
Less than an hour. Well, I thought there was a curious threshold, but that's probably what,
Yeah.
that accommodates those kinds of things.
All right. Proposed action may result in light shining onto adjoining properties, and what we're saying, shielded lighting will be used.
You've made a statement to that point.
Yeah. And there's a note in the plans that references that.
Yes.
Proposed action may result in lighting creating sky glow, and that's also not gonna happen because of what we're saying. And then I wrote a note that said concerns regarding light noise will be mitigated by project fencing, landscaping, and manure management plan. So that's kind of generally what I threw in there for now. Impacts on human health. All right. Let's take a quick look at, I think we're gonna end up with a no, but just buzz down this and see if any of these sub-questions give you a concern.
A might be a,
Yes.
you might have to click yes.
And we can say yes and just see if we think it's a large impact or not. So that first one for A, is that a large impact or
No,
small
I don't
impact?
see why.
We'll go with small. B, the site of proposed action is currently
You got
undergoing
trouble right here in
remediation.
River City.
No. There's no emergency spills, so no hazardous chemicals. No deed restriction area issues that we have. No institutional controls are in place. F doesn't seem to be an issue here. G doesn't seem to be. Construction modification of solid waste management facility. Man, this is not really gonna be a facility, but like an institutional one. Unearthing of solid or hazardous waste, unearthing, no. Proposed action may result in increase in the rate of disposal of processed solid waste, so that, I mean, the package treatment plant, I suppose technically is handling
It's not
some waste,
solid
but
waste.
it's not.
That's not solid
It's not
waste.
solid waste like a
That's
landfill or
trash,
something.
yeah.
Proposed action may result in excavation or disturbance within 2,000 feet of solid or hazardous waste, no. Proposed action result in migration of explosive gases from a landfill and may result in the release of contaminated leachate from project sites. So we said no or small impact, so all these, so even though I'll check, well, I'm gonna say no.
Just to check, I think I know the answer, but the effluent has to meet those standards of discharge, right? That'd be the closest thing you have to the leachate.
Okay, the next item is number 7, 1-7. The proposed action is not consistent with adopted land use plans. And of course, why we're here is because they're in asking for a zone change to make it consistent with the plans. So let's just quickly buzz down through your sub-questions. So I mean, you could say it will be different. You could say it would be different from surrounding properties. Well, not gonna make the population grow. It's not inconsistent because they're seeking a zone change. There's no county plan that's applicable. Okay, the existing infrastructure should be able to handle it. They're bringing in water, they're bringing in their treatment plant, and the road system can support it if it's handled properly. You don't need, if you are creating additional infrastructure, but that's just to service the actual project. And I don't think you're gonna see any secondary development unless it's maybe some additional commercial projects pop up in the future, but I don't know that it's gonna be a large.
RV dealership?
Maybe, yeah.
You never know.
Not a pawn shop, right?
Well, maybe the Sun Chevy there will turn into an RV dealership.
Premises and purchase on business and agriculture. So I am going to check, even though I'm gonna check yes, because we're actually doing a zone change, all of the sub-questions were no or small impact. This is gonna be a very similar question here. Consistency with community character. It's inconsistent with the existing community character is the question. A, proposed action may replace or eliminate existing facilities, structures, or areas of historic importance to the community. No for that one?
No.
Proposed action may create a demand for additional community services, schools, police, or fire. We did run this past the fire department. I didn't hear the chief say that he thought he needed a new pumper or anything like that for this. We'll talk about fire stuff in a minute. Proposed action may displace affordable low-income housing. That's not going to happen. Proposed action may interfere with the use of German officially recognized or designated public resources. We don't have any involved in this. It's inconsistent with the predominant architectural scale and character. Now, I think the buildings he's building are going to be, farm sort of based and maybe match up a little bit with the nearby zoo properties. So you got to be okay with a smallish impact there.
Okay.
And then natural landscape, inconsistent with character natural landscape. It's just basically a flat field area up there.
So we're saying yes with a very small.
Yeah, you're saying yes to this, but all with no or small impact. Okay. Project mitigations will eliminate any issues with the predominant character of the area, which includes the separate area zoo and a mixture of business and residential homes. I'm really defining it as that whole bigger area. Okay, so let's see. So we've done all 18 questions. So maybe the thing to do now, we haven't voted on any kind of a negative declaration. So maybe, Frank, the next thing we do is go through that proposed resolution a little bit.
Sure.
And then let the board ask more questions about
Yep.
the project from an environmental standpoint. So to get you guys ready for this meeting, and to save a little time, I took a stab at a potential resolution. I think I distributed an early draft a few weeks ago to you guys to look at. And so the resolution, the new one, which Phil was kind enough to make copies of. Phil did it? Or Katie did it? She's asleep. Look at that. She's gone. Okay, this is a 12-page resolution. I won't read it out loud because I know you guys are familiar with it. But let's hit the high points and talk about it. So the first part of the resolution introduces what the project is, what it is exactly, the description of, it's the mixed-use project, where it's located. what the underlying zoning is and all that. And then the second whereas clause deals with the section of the code that allows the town board to amend its zoning law to create planned development districts. And then from there on, we get into a recitation of the history of the seeker process, and that you guys became the lead agency. Town board kicked that down to you guys to roll up your sleeves and dig in on that, to look at those potential impacts, which is what we're doing right now. And then it identifies the land areas in this general vicinity. And it mentions that we're gonna examine any impacts on, from dust, noise, traffic, and odors that we're gonna be considering through that review of part 2. And we've talked about some of the mitigations that the applicant's engineer has designed into the project to try to alleviate any of these potential negative environmental impacts, including screening and things of that nature, shielding of lights, et cetera, that we've discussed a little bit. And then the next section of this is a resolved and determined clause that would suggest that if you want to approve this as a negative declaration, here are the reasons that may allow you to support that determination. And then that first paragraph is that the proposed use of the premises will be mixed use, amusement, recreational on the premises, and we identify that. We have the drawings, and I think I was gonna have Danielle put all of those, I might have her re-list all of Ed's drawings in this, like we did before on some of the other stuff, but I'll handle that. I think she's got the list of each sheet. Placeholder for that, just to make sure, because I wanna make sure I know what we're approving or not approving or whatever. Number 2, the mixed use would consist of lands utilized for amusement, recreation purposes, including an RV, campground, bungalows, office area, water park, banquet, event facility, and restaurant use, as well as the display of zoo animals at the site, along with other improvements and supporting features, all is depicted on submitted plans. 3, the use would operate an RV, campground, mixed-use recreation facility.
Yeah, it's
Well,
also-
that's gotta be a change. Okay, this one is, am I working off the right one? What's yours say?
Yeah, no, this one's got, this is page 6,
Yeah.
page 6 too, and this is, it's got your annotations in it.
Yeah,
Uh,
that was a mistake. So that's not, I mentioned, we went to the town board to talk about the seasons for this. It was the applicant, with the town board's acknowledgement, does not want to limit this from April 1st to September 30th. And so the actual local law struck that out. So really, you're evaluating this on a year-round use for almost everything, with the idea that the RVs themselves is doubtful they're gonna come in January, February, I would guess, I don't know, or December.
I think we need to entertain, is this, we've never really stated it because it was seasonal, but there is no permanent availability of these sites for hookup for residential purposes. In other words, somebody can't, huh?
Correct.
Year round, but I mean, that's never stated. I mean, I think that's implied, but now if you're gonna run this thing year round and the park facilities are open, you open up to that type of thing, that if somebody wants to come in the middle of the winter or whatever, or season, just hang out in the campsite, cut a deal to stay there,
Is there camper there all year,
leave the camper.
so they can go in and out?
I would
So
say
this-
that,
Yeah.
do we want that kind of thing? Cause
Well,
that
this
means
came
that
up at the meeting.
if you got fire, if you got fire issues, that means that everything has gotta be plowed all the time.
So
Really?
Jeff, so what happened was Jeff Taylor, at that last meeting, we were going through this, kind of stopped, we had the discussion with the town board. And he said, he doesn't see a reason to limit the use of the campground to those.
I don't
periods of
think
time
that's, I don't think that's a great idea.
Well, they could use part of the campground,
Huh?
instead of the whole campground, they could use a part of it.
Sure.
Well,
You
the
can enumerate, you
restaurant
can-
was always gonna be year round.
And the bank,
And
that
the
seems
event
pretty obvious.
area is gonna be year
I'm
round.
not sure about an arcade and a putt-putt golf in January,
For the water
but
park.
anyway, that, you know, if you want that open, you want a camp store open all winter, I mean, what are you open for? And, Yeah, I don't know. I think that ought to be something that ought to be reconsidered.
Well, maybe we include that in our recommendation.
Yeah, I agree with you.
All right, let me write that up, that's a good point. But this is what came up when we were at that meeting, John remembers, last week? Was it last week? It's like a month ago. That came up, and we had to stop and say, okay, because I had written it up a different way, so, okay, so.
As fire insurance would make them keep stuff open.
But like you say, just the maintenance of everything too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why
Maintain
you
the
want,
whole
I don't know why you
park.
wanna do
Just
that.
do a section.
Huh?
They wouldn't have to do the whole park, just a section.
Oh, that's correct.
Right.
That's correct. But then it has to be delineated, you know, just have the whole park blank and open.
Being open year round.
I can see up north, people do it for snowmobiling, I presume, there's probably some open.
Well, I mean, people
Hunting,
could consider,
people do it for hunting.
people could consider using that for snowmobiling as well, to get on the canal and, you know.
That's true, yeah.
So, I mean, it is a possibility, you know, people could.
Why don't we just call it out in the recommendations of the town, because I know the town board authorized amendment
You ought to
of the
really think
PDD
about
to
that.
say year round.
Yeah,
And I did put that in there for the little board to consider, but
Well,
instead.
we will flesh that out then.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay, we'll
that's
put
good.
that right in the recommendation then,
Yep.
take a look at that, okay. Let's see, hold on, I lost my place here.
Number 4.
Okay, so, update this. Okay. And I'd just like to say there's no other proposed uses, so you don't end up getting a car dealership or something there, you know, that kind of thing. Just this, I mean, we do this with every one of these that we do, we always say, this is what you're getting, and you're not supposed to do
Well, it's
anything else.
limited to what,
Yeah, to what the plan is.
yeah.
5, all existing and proposed structures are depicted upon the plan and the map. 6.
They got to be labeled as to what they are. Now, we're not, you know, what they are now. What are their purpose? What is their purpose? Animal housing, okay?
The use.
It needs to be there because basically you are, when you do the PDD and everybody signs off on it, that's what you do. If that's gonna get altered, then there's a process to alter that. That's clear. You
6.
know, you just don't come in there with something else.
Number 6 is an interior improved roadway will be constructed on the site to service all proposed uses. He's got that shown. Again, I had the whole open year-round thing in there again, so anticipated it'll be year-round, blah, blah, blah. Hours of operation, I changed those too, but now I think this reads correctly, let's see. Hours of operation be controlled through a quiet time for the RV campground facility from 10 p.m. through 8 a.m., 7 days a week. Operator facility will ensure appropriate staff is on hand to manage and maintain quiet time. And then the town board had worked through that the last meeting. And the project's 118.28 acres on the site. This site is open land, general open land with multiple structures as shown on the plan. Yeah, okay, we covered that. All right, those are my notes about the.
That number 9, Ed, I mean, my understanding is that is a parcel. That is a parcel in itself. That everything is developed. There's not multiple parcels involved. It's just one parcel.
Yes.
Correct. So there's a tax map. There's a tax map number for that. If you want, we want to find it.
I have it. It's in there somewhere. Yeah, I did put the tax map number.
Okay.
first,
Early. It was
First
early.
whereas.
Okay. 11. The premises are located along New Boston Road with various residential, commercial, industrial, and agricultural uses in the area. Okay, fencing. Fencing and screening will be implemented to address impacts. And Frankie, you
Clarification
talked about
on this, okay? I'm reading the map, and we've got a wooden fence of some kind on the east side, okay? And then across the front, correct? This is similar to what he's done at other, is a board and batten or just slatted boards.
Board on board.
Yeah. Now, on your legend, it appears that you got a barbed wire fence over next to the bus garage. I don't think you meant that. I imagine it's a page wire fence.
Look at that.
Or I could have misinterpreted, but I'm reading your legend, and the only thing I see there is barbed wire.
Yeah.
And razor wire or something, those bus drivers could get wild and, whatever.
That's a good catch. Okay.
But what is it? What is it gonna be? A page wire fence or something?
Like chain link?
Yeah.
On that side?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see, the 13 is the package treatment plant and the required approvals, and then we had talked earlier about making sure that DEC determines that this is a feasible design, which they'll have to show.
I think we need a letter. I think there needs to be, because we've been talked a little bit about. Just want to make sure that this is feasible and the players on the other side are fully aware at this point of what this is, and that, this isn't going to be a showstopper. Because if all of a sudden somebody says this isn't going to work, there's no sense of getting into construction.
So I think you're saying like before formal construction
Right.
on the site, that
I
we
would
get
say
something
before
from the
formal
DEC or
construction
the
permits
appropriate department
permits
says
or
it's a
release.
feasible plan.
Yeah, so.
You ought to have a letter of feasibility or
Year
somebody.
13,
Yeah.
It's not, and potentially, it is both departments. So I don't know if you.
Yeah, no, I picked that up, yeah. I think at the time I wrote that, it was many months ago.
Yeah.
Okay. 14, water service will be provided by Aqua, issue its approvals directly to the applicants. Applicants shall provide and install appropriate backflows. They've known about that, and they've talked to the.
Do we have any kind of a correspondence that says that they acknowledge that they're aware of this and they're okay?
From Aqua? No, we haven't had any dialogue with Aqua.
Would you think that, it's probably, there's no problem, but wouldn't we want one on file that's just to say, all of a sudden you don't wanna say Aqua comes in and says, no, we can't do this, or.
Well, part of the exercise, and this is what we've been going back and forth with Taylor's office on, is figuring out, look, at the end of the day, we know Aqua's gonna provide the water.
Sure.
They have to provide the water. The question that we've been trying to figure out from a technical standpoint, not to hang you guys up on this, but with the components of the project, how is Aqua going to have us make the taps and then backflow them accordingly? So we've got the north side of the road, you got the banquet facility up there, you have the water line. So that's tap one. Do we just, are they gonna require a hot box? Right, and then on the south side of the road, are they gonna do two, or are they gonna have, one for the south side of the road or two?
Right. Yeah,
So
and who's gonna do the directional bore, and
there won't be directional bore.
can they open cut the road to go from the main's on the north side, right? So you guys,
You are correct.
and
I stand
then
corrected.
you've gotta get across the
Yes.
south side,
I'm
so
thinking
somebody's
about
got a
that, yeah.
directional bore,
Or they open trench it, but either way, that's gonna be
if
coordinated.
the county will let them.
Yeah, the county.
If the county
I
will
don't
let
think
them.
you have a problem with that.
Well, I don't think so either, but that's a county DOT, that's, again, you have to
That's
get,
fair.
you have to permit from them to do the utilities.
Okay, that's a good comment, though.
But we just can't, you can't have on file just an email that says from somebody of authority in Aqua saying, we were aware of the project, and from what we've seen or what we know, we can supply the water.
Absolutely, and we're to that point, that's my whole point, technically,
Okay,
we're to
so
that
we
point where I need to
really,
reach
we
out to
really
Steve
ought, we
and
really ought to see that.
have him get that, yeah.
All right, I'll put a note, that'll also go in our recommendation letter, Frank, just making
Sure.
the board
Yep.
aware that, the Aqua involvement in the county DOT for appropriate work permit to get the water in place. 15, the applicants have provided a letter from SHPO, that's the date, September 10th, which states that no properties including archaeological or historic resources listed in or eligible for the New York State National Registry of Historic Places will be impacted by the project, so we covered that. 16, the use will utilize an ingress and egress should utilize ingress and egress points located off of a county highway, New Boston Road. 17, the premises contain parking areas and travel roads used by the RV campground and event areas, which roads and areas will utilize dust suppression methods as needed. 18 structures on site include barns of various dimensions, an existing house, outbuildings, a venue center, restaurant building, rental cabins, various animal enclosures, a gate, and existing and proposed fencing. And I think Frank, we talked about just double checking that these structures and buildings existing and proposed get onto that map so that we don't have any question.
They're on, they're not identified. I think you got,
Buildings.
eventually got them all on.
Yeah, okay. 19 proposed structures as depicted on the PDD are all on there, which is what we just said. 20 proposed signage is depicted on the submitted plans and is also characteristic of the use. 21. Visitors' site will ingress and egress from New Boston Road to be directed to an appropriate area for stacking of vehicles to enter the site if necessary. And this is a related one. 22. Applicants propose to use sufficient personnel to ensure safe traffic flow from New Boston Road, I should say into and out of the facility. And I think Mr. Taylor had said he would have his staff people doing that. But now we're memorializing that. 23, there have been no identified concerns with geological features or unique or unusual landforms. 24, there have been no identified significant issues related to loss of flora and fauna. 25, there have been no identified impacts on agricultural resources. And then Ed, there's a question about, do you have to file it, if that is ag district land, do you have to file a notice of intent with ag and markets depending on those soils? I don't know the answer, I'm asking.
We did ask that question, and I do not know.
Okay,
I'd have to figure that out. I'll talk.
Yeah,
I'd have to talk about
that would be good. Okay, and I can make that in this, put this in here, Frank, so.
I think basically that's for assessment purposes, right? More than anything.
Ag-
You got, you know,
I feel like we vetted that a while.
I think
back,
we
and it was
maybe
no,
we got through that.
But
that was thrown out there. I'm just not sure.
yeah.
Frank, buildings that they're gonna put up, remember at, Wilders had told them, they numbered the buildings in the fire department or anybody, if there was a problem in one of the buildings, they could go directly to that building. Are you gonna have them do something like that here?
Well, the fire department's gonna have a site plan, it should, when you get done.
So that they.
And I mean, if you don't have street numbers, I mean, you're not naming the streets.
Correct.
The only structure, that's an interesting question, I don't know.
Just look for the one
What
that's
do you-
on fire, flames coming out.
Yeah, right, look for the fire. Yeah, but the point is, let's say there's an EMT.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay?
Mhm.
How do they, and you got you're 50% full. How do they know where to go?
Well, structures can be
Huh?
lettered or numbered.
Beg your pardon?
It can be lettered or numbered.
You're talking about like the campsites or the RV sites?
I'm talking about.
Yeah, well, they would
buildings.
be, yeah, they would have a
I'm talking
little,
about buildings.
you are, but I'm expanding that a
Yeah.
little bit.
Well,
I'm
so
going on.
just for conversation's sake, just to maybe I'm not answering it, but I think unlike his other properties here, they're distinct. So it's not a certain animal building.
No.
You have a restaurant, you have a check-in building. So if something comes in, so let's say someone slips and falls in the check-in building. The call goes out to EMT, they say, you're in the check-in building, not the kangaroo building. So they're looking for something else. Here, there's a check-in building, a
But you
restaurant.
do have.
I'm thinking of the bathrooms.
Right.
That's what I'm
right.
thinking of.
Okay, all right.
I'm thinking of the bathrooms.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Bathroom, shower,
Or
similar
some fall
buildings.
from the shower, or, there's some event, which one is it, But there again, I I just think that's an interesting question, I don't really.
Bathhouse number 2.
I'll put a note in
bathhouse-
that one for the referral to another.
That would, I think maybe that, I mean, I don't think you need, I don't think you need name the roadways or
I
anything.
mean, they can
but-
just file after it's built, they can file a plan with emergency
Sure,
services, fire
well,
department.
well, I think probably a number of these
And
things,
then they
that's
just
what we're
have
gonna,
it, yeah.
we're gonna have to
After
see.
the fact.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
how about some things like do with the parking lot there? He has like, this is the zebra section, this is the lion section. There's some way to distinguish which areas that they may be responding to. You know, so I mean, you've got 10 or 20 spots over here, and that's one area and another area, just so that they have an they're identified in a way that they can respond to quickly.
You see, are you okay with the answer? I mean, his answer, what he gave, those other buildings are distinct.
Right.
You know, if it's the banquet facility,
Right.
you're gonna know, and,
Well,
the
it's
fire department is,
boundaries.
but everybody's not gonna have, yeah, I mean, you're such a big area. You know,
Yeah,
there
more
would be
than
some,
one
I could see some
bathroom, more than one
confusion on the
laundry
part of emergency people, but I think it's more like the bathrooms and stuff that are all kind of generic.
Laundry room.
Yeah, and I don't know, I mean,
Yeah, I
I
don't
don't
know.
answer that as far as the how.
Well, if they were, you know, they were numbered or they're on a legend, you know, on a legend on the side of the map, bathroom 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever they,
Mhm.
you know, and labeled correspondingly.
All right, let's see, and we'll.
Not a big issue, but the thing
We
is,
can call that out on the recommendation, say,
Yep.
say that that's
Yep.
something that should be filed with emergency services. Okay, next is. All right,
26.
thank you. There have been no identified concerns regarding aesthetics. There have been, 27, there have been no identified historic or archaeological resources, what impacts there. There's a lot of this just copying over what we just did with the part 2. 28, neither the property nor surrounding areas have identified the town as open space or recreational areas. No critical environmental areas. Number 30, no negative impacts due to increased energy. 31, there are no identified impacts to human health. 32, New York State DEC, wetlands will not be impacted or disturbed. Probably should say Army Corps on here too, if there are any, so I'm gonna say ACE. How they did that, I don't know why. 33, the project will require a stormwater permit and a SWIP. SWIP has been prepared and submitted, document was prepared by Corey. As revised, I gotta get the revision dates, that's all. And depicts the stormwater facilities. 35, applicants are required to undertake the use of the premises in strict compliance with approved SWIP and construct and maintain them. 36, applicants are required to enter into a stormwater control facility maintenance agreement to be recorded in the Madison County Clerk's Office. 37, planning board directed the applicants to obtain professional opinion from a licensed traffic consultant, which we got from Gordon. And then I quoted from the conclusions of that original TIS, and then I just quoted, he said there's no mitigation measures and there's sufficient sight line and all that stuff. I did the conclusions. And then to be fair, I gave the Madison County Planning Department comments regarding traffic on 39, and then on 40, we asked Gordon to look at those comments, and he gave us his response to those, and I quoted those. Those conclusions that Gordon gave us on that. 41, in accordance with the applicant's applications, noted the overall site will be operated throughout the year, with certain features being somewhat seasonal in nature, and I think that gives a little flexibility, because I don't think that those, I could be wrong, I don't know that those sites are gonna be rented out in the dead of winter. They could be like the Paul's Point with snowmobiles, but we just gotta call that out and just talk about it, that's all. But it could be dormant, those parts of those could be dormant.
Well, I mean, that might be agreed upon now, but
Yeah.
in the future,
Right.
if all of a sudden they say, oh, this may be a good idea.
Yeah.
So if we
Yeah.
find it,
So you got that in there. Oh, now the applicants have represented they're in possession of the necessary federal and state permits for possession and display of exotic animals and shall provide same to the town. So this Jeff had, give us a copy of those permits to have on file. The applicant's plan for animal waste disposal will utilize the waste as fertilizer in nearby pastures on a weekly basis. I think that's accurate, right, Ed? It's a weekly disposal of the waste, I believe.
I think you took that from the other one, didn't you?
I don't know. I think he said he's got to get rid of the waste on a weekly basis.
That's at the very
I thought that came from the other
Yeah.
DD.
In this case, he's got people on there. He's not going to want a lot of waste like stinking out his customers.
Call it
The SWIP also addresses potentials for flooding, land is generally level. 45, the town's consulted with the respondent fire company, which is advised there are no safety issues, subject to its letter dated November 3, 2021. And that's all I had, but I'm open to more and less or whatever you want, but that was just to get us going on the discussion. So those are my proposed findings for a seeker resolution. And I made a bunch of notes on the referral letter that I worked on with Frank for a few weeks here. But I think now is a good time to just have a little more open discussion on the project. So if we need to capture some of that in here, we can do that.
I don't think it's our purview per se, but I have a question as far as, since this is going to be done in one phase, at which point will the operation be allowed to commence? I mean, if he puts in facilities for 20 campgrounds, and is that enough to get things going, even though construction may be continuing? Will that be something we would allow, that they would allow usage while construction continues? And how will that be impacted? I mean, in other words, when will it say this is operational? Does the thing have to be 100% complete? The banquet facility, the store, the facility, the campground, everything's got to be in place before they can start using it? Or at some point they're going to say, okay, we got it, let's get started. What's the answer to that? I mean, I know that may be out of our purview, but it's just.
Well, no, it's not.
Yes.
No, I think it's appropriate. You got any comments there?
Not my call. He gets 10 sites built,
Well,
and then he can do
well,
whatever he wants.
Well,
That's
I think
my-
probably, I thought we were going to say, you go with it, is that basically,
I mean, so it's a
there's
good
base-
question. There's a logistics issue.
Yeah.
It's a big project. There's going to be logistics issues. As far as the sequencing of things, I don't know, and I can't imagine. I'm just thinking about it. Just if this just strip it down for a second. If this were my project, I wouldn't want to get 15 campsites built. One road in here, get 10 or 15 of them operational, get campers in there, and then have construction vehicles platooning in and out of there. I mean, he's going to have to give the sequence and those logistics some thought.
well, also the point that he's got to have some infrastructure in place.
Well, he's
Right.
And the bare bones is the waste, is the septic. He's gonna have to have all that in place, all the lines in place. He's got pump stations on the far end of the
Yeah.
project.
So
plus the package plant.
he's hitting a home run.
Yeah.
The first,
Right off the bat, he's coming out of the gate. He's got to hit a home run.
Yeah.
as Dave
Yeah, but-
pointed out, the first thing they do is that they've got to do their SWIP abatement, and then they dig their ponds in construction. There's I think, a pretty decent outline in the front page of your cover page there of a sequencing of things that have to occur.
And the
So
SWIP
that's,
does the same thing.
they're embedded there is some limiting
And that's-
factor. Now,
Big
I
job.
think,
The ponds alone.
Yeah.
That is gonna be a major dirt moving job that's gonna be a big,
well, you gotta have
Big chunk
somewhere
of-
for the construction water to go.
Yeah.
That can't go off-site either.
Right.
Right?
That's why you start with your pond.
You gotta
at
start
your
with
lowest
ponds.
spot. and go up.
yeah.
But, I mean,
So, but the point you're making is a good one, and I think somehow we need to maybe
Yeah, I made
talk
some
about
notes,
that.
so it's
We
gonna
need
be
to
another
talk
call
about
out
that a
to the
little
town
bit, you know?
board. Yep.
I mean,
So we got some work to do on
Because
that.
across the road,
Yeah.
well, you got a ways to go, or I need to get the revenue going, we need to get the restaurant going, we need to do this. You can't go in there and cherry pick off what you wanna do, and when it's more, a lot of this is total, you gotta have that drainage in place, the landscaping in place, you just can't piecemeal.
That's the thing. I mean,
You
that's
can't
the point.
piecemeal
Once you
some of
get
this.
going, you got to sprint.
But I
He's gotta
think we
follow
need
the
to
secret.
define that.
Right.
He's gotta follow the secret.
Right.
Secret's what the project's gonna be.
but just case in point with, supply chain shortages, he's got everything done except for some oven equipment that he might need for the banquet facility or the restaurant, is that gonna hold up the whole project? Is that gonna prevent them from opening up the campground?
What you're saying is it's everything ready to go that day. I think that is the discussion piece.
Right.
Yeah, so we'll have to call that out in this too, so. that
Yeah, I
people are
can't-
aware. But you can see.
Good, fair question.
Practically
Fair
speaking,
question.
Paul, I think it's a good point. You can see, looking at the plan, that the RV area on that one side, that might be, that, for whatever reason, maybe that gets built out in a pretty good shape, but to your point, that if the other side, there's something that's not
Or the
quite
bungalows
there,
or
well, the bungalows aren't ready,
Right.
could you say, well, the RV part is 100% complete, ready to go, toilets work.
But he has no
everything
cabins.
Right, but I'm saying
Cabins are-
because
yeah.
this is done as one
But that-
phase,
works. Right,
how is this
Yeah.
gonna be done? I mean, otherwise, if you said, okay, phase one will be this, phase two will be the
There-
banquet
there's
facility, you know, everything done that
there's a
way,
lot of
then,
moving parts
Yeah,
there.
I
And you
mean,
can
it-
see economically, I'm sure there's gotta be, this is none of our business, but there's gotta be a cash flow stream
Mhm.
to pay for. Because if it lingers too long, the economic model, you don't want that to collapse.
Right.
Because you're getting held up to your point about, whatever it is, you know, something over on the other side of the park that has nothing to do with the west side or whatever side it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting observation, we're gonna have to call that out too.
Yeah, but a good point.
And the weather could be an issue.
And the weather could be a factor too, yeah.
Rainy in spring or.
But that's true with most projects, the weather is always a iffy thing. Other observations, questions, comments and points to the town
To
board?
do the ponds, to get the ponds, that is gonna be the secret of that project, so that he's got the water runoff, he's got the project to keep that project going. The drainage, and to keep moving, if it is a wet spring, if it's a wet summer, he needs that ponds, he needs all that to keep that water flowing, and to place to store it, to keep the site dry, to do the work.
Yeah, and a lot of times what we'll do on the bigger projects, and again, this is all in keeping with the SWIP, and in understanding that it's an ongoing, and remembering that the SWIP is a live document.
Right.
So when you get into this, you might get your big basin in, and then let's say he's working over in this particular area, you know, what you'll do is you can cut a drainage finger in to start drying that area out so that you can work, so you're not in a mud mess. But to
Right.
Dave's point, you've chased all your water to its final destination, so that you can work in isolated areas. So
That makes sense.
I mean, from a construction standpoint, that's how you'd work in.
That's
in
why
individual areas.
we always.
Yeah.
If you don't keep your drainage flowing, you keep your water, you're not moving.
Right,
And,
exactly.
and he's gotta move the dirt. So,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a big task.
You-
And plus, he has an inspection every week. Am I correct? Is that your company or somebody's gotta do a?
So, yeah, usually the SWIP, I mean, it doesn't have to be. Typically, your SWIP preparer will be your, you know, be the one who does your SWIP inspections.
Right.
Which is another issue. Okay. What, John,
Mm-hmm.
I would say at this point, we're getting, where are we ending up?
So.
Are we relatively comfortable with seeker and the seeker draft as John has presented it?
Yeah, I am.
Is there
Covered
any-
the 18 areas, you made really good comments. We've filled out the paperwork. I brought a resolution for a negative declaration. If you want to act on that tonight, I'm comfortable that you do that. And then if you do that, then you gotta go on to the recommendation letter, which was started. And I've got about 800 pages of notes from tonight now that we've just added to that. So that's gonna take me a while, and I'm gonna need Frank's help. So with that thing, you might, if you're ready to act on that recommendation, I would say, I'd be here for 4 hours literally writing it up. So I would say probably give Frank the authority to check my work over and make sure I capture everything you want, so that can go out. You know,
Get
as soon as I
some,
get
I've got a
that.
couple of thoughts, you know, I'll just throw them out there to you. We really have addressed some of these in our discussion so far, which has been very helpful. But I guess what I'm saying to you, can we put some finality to
I think we should.
the seeker part?
Yeah.
I think we
You're good
should.
with that?
Yes.
You want us to do a formal resolution tonight on that?
Yeah.
And we could still look at the language of the
The recommendation.
Right.
Yeah, so,
Then,
Yeah.
that's a separate item.
yes, it is. It's a separate vote. The recommendation is a separate vote from the seeker. The
And again, I just bring this up, I'm not, you don't necessarily on the recommendation, you can vote on the recommendation, but that doesn't mean that you're giving approval to what is in the recommendation. Not necessarily saying, we agree with everything. There's still some contingencies out there that need to be addressed, and they will be so stated in that kind of, in that recommendation, okay? Then you also have the opportunity, not to get too far out, if it goes to the town board, it comes back to us, to those things for us to give any kind of a final closure, they have to be satisfactory and correct.
I don't have that language, I probably do in here somewhere, but the language of that section of the code does say that, just so you guys.
That's basically
Comes
what,
back
that's
to you for a
basically what
final.
you're doing. Then the town board can put in whatever, they're gonna have their own recommendations. Basically, we're there to say, okay, this is what we think, or this is what we thought, this is what you wanna do. Okay, that is being implemented on the plans, basically. We aren't really the yay or nay on that.
John, you understand all that, right? And I'll go over that to town board.
Okay.
Yep.
I do feel strongly that we need some letter from someone in authority that can say the package plan is, as understood by the drawings now, is a feasible solution to the conditions of this project.
Yep.
Because I just think it's totally futile that to have all of a sudden the rug pulled out somewhere and that not workable down the road, because we can't issue, I don't see the town, I would not recommend that the town issue any permits until we know that there is no really substantial impediment. I think the other things we're talking about are all peripheral. Address this. We gotta have B&L comments. We gotta have formal letters there. I certainly would like to see, I would be satisfied if board, if you are, I'd be satisfied with an email to Ed in this conversation with Aqua, that we're okay, there's no question, we'll provide the water at some point, or somehow.
Yep.
The water will be there. Now, are there other things? Sherry, you had some questions, did they get addressed?
Well, I don't think we were there, because in the letter from this one, there were some things, and one of the things they were saying is, section F number 3, should skirting, my question is, they're saying all of the trailers.
Okay, you gotta identify they, who are they?
I think it was in this,
You
I'm not
know.
sure I did it so long ago, but
Well, that one right there is from Ed.
I think that's from,
That's original,
and I think that's
original
what this is.
overture to the project.
And what he said was, they wanted skirting on all of the trailers. And that doesn't seem feasible, because if you
No.
come in for a weekend, or a week even,
No, that's a mobile home.
That was
Yeah,
from
that's-
all
that's
parts
what I
somewhere.
mean. Yeah, I don't know
Yeah,
what
yeah,
that was about. Yeah.
and I'm just
Yeah,
like, well, that seems kind of weird.
So I don't, you're not gonna pose that on them.
No.
No.
And they have to be approved skirts. They've gotta be, not just plywood.
skirts.
No,
Meaning
no,
you're-
plywood?
no,
Linen or
Yeah,
cotton block, that
yeah,
kind of
something.
skirt,
tapestry of
I
some
mean, it does
kind.
look very nice, but if you just come in for a weekend, what a project.
yeah. Yeah.
After a
You
week,
gotta stack concrete blocks.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Just have a pile of them. Yeah. with windows.
Rent them for the
Okay,
week.
no, that was
That's
been,
enough, that was the main one.
you
I
got
thought it was
others?
kind of- No, I think it was kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, well, you're right. It was. Anything else, gentlemen? Okay, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna finalize the seeker. We're good with that, we're done, basically. And then the letter, we need to get it into a form that we can get to you to review
Right.
and get it expediently out if you're giving me the authority to act on your part.
Now, as far as this letter, this resolution that we have for tonight, we can vote on that?
You can do it tonight, yes.
Okay.
the resolution on
The negative declaration.
negative deck.
Yeah,
Negative deck,
yeah.
we just went through.
Yeah, I think you just went through with all those
Yeah, but do we have
statements
to,
and
we have to have a
findings
formal
and
vote, right?
comments.
Right, that
All
you-
has to come down to a motion and a second and a vote on it.
And then we approve the seeker.
Yeah.
Part 2 as a negative deck.
Yeah.
And then we have to approve the letter of
Yeah.
summary.
Right.
I'll make the motion,
I'll second it.
Oh, Sherry,
Okay.
this is on the negative deck.
yes.
Okay.
Negative deck, now do you want to include the motion, no?
No, well, as far, I would do a second motion on the recommendation.
Okay.
So this will be a standalone.
A negative deck on the seeker,
Yeah.
that's all we're doing,
Okay.
okay, right now.
Yep.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none.
All right, let me just,
No.
Rose, I'll get you a cleaned up version for your minutes on
Thank
this.
you.
I was gonna circle the right thing. So John is excused. Sherry, yes. Okay, got that. Now, the next one is this letter that we've been working on, and if you look at what I'm sure Frank's got notes and I've got notes. I've got page after page of a bunch of extra add-on notes on each of these pages that Frank and I have to go through to make sure we get this done the right way. And we have a very short period of time to do this for you, John, at the town board, so I'm gonna work as hard as I can to get that done. Because we have that meeting on the 19th for you guys in public hearing. Although I did say, for some reason we got backwards on it, we would certainly try to get that way. We're gonna have a public hearing when you get closed. But I'll try to get this done as soon as I can. Just like you, I'm backed up real bad. So, if you guys will make a motion in a second authorizing this recommendation letter as it's written, but with the proviso that Frank and I will work out the comments that were agreed upon by the board to be added to the letter, then we don't have to meet again before, next Wednesday.
Okay with that? We'll get it out to you, fair, we'll get it so you can see what we're doing.
So moved, I make the motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion concerning that? We could phrase that. Not hearing any, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so I'm saying, Shot, do you have something that we need to know or we should be looking at here that we have not?
The horse has been beat
Get me
dead.
out of here.
The horse has been beat dead.
Okay.
This
all
one's
right.
faster than I thought. I thought it was gonna be here at 9 o'clock. All right, I gotta have you sign this, I gotta have you sign part 3, Frank. I signed it as the preparer, and you are the boss man, you gotta sign it.
Ed, there's just one little typo. You had on there the
Signature,
number of
right
bungalows.
above my name.
The number of bungalows, it says typical of 16, and there's actually
So the board
17 of
knows,
them there.
part 3, which we
What is
seldom ever do, is notice summary of action.
I don't know what
And
that's
that's gotta
called,
be
it's 115.
And I gotta publish this in what's called the environmental
It says
notice
tip-
bulletin.
Up on the
that
top, it says
resolution.
typical of 16,
Daniel
but
and
there's
I'll take care of
17
that.
in the count.
I'll leave that.
I'm gonna, Frank, after you sign that right now, if you don't mind, I wanna take it back and I'll make a color copy and send it to Rose and
Sure.
to Jerry, because I just wanna keep the whole package with me for now.
I mean, if you're
I'll
gonna do
turn it all
16,
over
then
to the
fine,
town
do
later on.
16, but whatever it's gonna be.
You mean make it right, Paul?
Yeah.
Thank you,
One
sir.
of those little things.
You all have to stay in close
Okay.
touch for the next few days,
Right, yeah.
so we don't let it fall.
Okay, no, well, I'll work on that. If you looked at that draft, just so you know what we're doing, there's a, John, after he put down, he left a blank in there that says for the planning board, so I'm filling in the blank. Okay,
All right.
that's what I'm doing.
Okay, so-
But call me if you've got any kind of, thoughts or whatever that, we'll see. We have resolved some of these little issues that are along the way,
I think we got a lot going
and
on.
there's things hanging out. Now, John, all right, what we need, I need to print that draft
Of the letter?
yeah,
Okay, I emailed it to you,
right, I got it, I'll get it to Jerry,
okay,
we'll get copies,
Okay.
I'll get them out to you, so you can see what they are.
and I'll be working on cleaning all these.
And then we'll have to
these
get you a
things up.
revision of that draft. Okay?
I'll be saying holding my feet up.
There you go.
I bet you will.
Me too.
Okay? All right? We need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned. Katie, thank you a million.